Today in the garage, we're recording live at AutoTech 2026 in Novi, Michigan, in the Detroit metro area. As one thinks about advanced technologies in vehicles, it's impossible not to think about ADAS and autonomous driving. And we're seeing incredible advances in those technologies all the time, with things like lane keeping and active cruise control becoming more and more commonplace, active emergency braking being required in more and more geographies in the future. And then, of course, it's big brother autonomous driving, where we're seeing robo-taxis with literally no driver. I know I see them driving near my office all the time. To talk about that, we wanted to bring an expert. And my guest today is Nimrod Brickman. He's Vice President of Business Development with Mobileye, an industry leader in ADAS and autonomous technologies. We really cover a wide range of topics and about how their technologies have advanced in the past years and how they're bringing these capabilities to more and more vehicles all the time. Let's go. Welcome to the garage. I'm John Heinlein, Chief Marketing Officer with Sonatus. We're here at AutoTech 2026 in Novi, Michigan. Nimrod, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, you said it right. Hey, thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. And look, we're thrilled to have you here. Start by introducing yourself and telling us about you.
Sure. So my name is Nimrod Brickman, and I'm the VP of Business Development in Mobileye. So I've been leading the business development in Mobileye for the past 3 years. I've been with the company for the past 9 years. A bit about my background, maybe. So I came from basically investment banking, working with technology companies. So I've worked with Israeli technology companies, trying to bring capital from different places around the world, focusing on China. Mm-hmm. So I've been working with China for many, many years. And then I started working with some automotive companies back then, and I got really intrigued. Really interesting technologies, interesting companies coming, trying to swim in this very, very intense industry. And this is what got me intrigued into automotive overall. Yeah.
That's great. So many amazing technology companies coming out of Israel. It's exciting to see the journey. You have to start by telling us a fun fact about you.
Okay, so going on with this China path, right? So the first deployment from Mobileye, basically, my first relocation position was to China.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was relocated to China. It was 2017, 2018. Pre-COVID. Uh-huh. I've lived there for a couple of years. I've actually studied Mandarin back from high school and then through university. It was quite useful.
Which city were you in?
I lived in Beijing. Uh-huh. I had some time pre-Mobileye in Shanghai as well. Mm-hmm. But I've lived in Beijing for 3 years. Amazing experience, such a different culture. Amazing.
That must have been such an exciting experience. My fun fact, I always share a fun fact back to my guests. I did an assignment in Japan, in Tokyo.
Also amazing.
Quite a few, about 20 years ago, actually, which was incredibly rewarding. Like you had studied Chinese. I had studied Japanese, not in school, but I had been studying Japanese with we did a lot of work with Japanese partners at Transmeta. This was several companies ago at Transmeta. And we had a number of Japanese partners, and I'd been studying Japanese quite intently, and in fact, I've been doing a lot of business development. So an opportunity came up to do a very senior role in our Japan office, and I was excited to do it.
Amazing. Also very difficult language, Japanese.
Well, we can have a whole conversation about that. Japanese and Chinese are differently difficult. I think that they're both interesting in their own respects, and they have different and unique, and they're actually the difficulties between the two are different. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Very interesting.
So that's that. Thank you for sharing that. Now tell us, for our listeners who may not know about Mobileye, Mobileye is an incredibly successful company and probably very well known. But for those listeners who might not know, could you tell us about the company and a bit more about your role?
Sure. So let's start first with the company. So Mobileye has been around for the past 25 years. Basically, the company introduced computer vision for advanced driver assistance systems starting in 1999, with first projects coming into play in 2007 and onwards. And basically, it's been a world leader in the computer vision industry. And I think just to give you some taste, by now we have more than 230 million IQ chips sold.
230 million.
Over that,
That's impressive.
It means that more than 230 million vehicles are equipped with our system. Roughly one in every eighth vehicle is using our technology, which we're very proud of. And now we have multiple engagements with OEMs, which are customers, companies that we're working with. The company has grown throughout the past few years moving from a tier 2 tech provider into more of a holistic role, delivering a full solution of level 2 plus, level 3, level 4. We're basically one of the companies, one of the only companies who were working from base ADAS, meaning the very basic technology, up to level 2 plus, level 3, and even to autonomous mobility. So this is with regards to the company itself.
That's great. I think we're going to get into all of those topics. And your role specifically is?
So I'm leading the business development activities. So basically everything which is pre-nominated, pre-sourced, I'm in charge of all the advanced development activities and engagements with global OEMs, and just managing the relations and trying to get more deeper connections with our OEM partners and expand our business. This is basically the role.
And you're based in the headquarters, is it Tel Aviv?
Is in Jerusalem.
Okay.
So I'm based in Israel, but we have multiple locations around the globe with multiple representatives. We have in the States, in Detroit here, and Paris, and Munich, Shanghai, Korea, Japan. So we have teams across the globe. Basically, in every hub that there is a big OEM or a big part of the industry.
So you've been with Mobileye for nearly a decade. ADAS has really changed a lot since you've joined. Can you tell us about that evolution? What are you seeing?
So it's quite amazing because when I started back then in China, it was all about meeting regulation, front-facing camera, business, very basic compared to what we see right now, what we're seeing right now. And it's a significant leapfrog jump that we're seeing within the industry. Basically, what the OEMs and the consumer are expecting from their system to deliver is completely different, right? If we're looking at all of the level 2 plus, level 3 capabilities that we're seeing out there, hands off, eyes off solutions. A decade ago, that was just almost science fiction. It was very imaginary. Right now, it's actually how OEMs are looking at their roadmap. Yeah. And throughout your engagement, it's a very interesting role that we're engaging right now.
You just finished a keynote just a short time ago here at AutoTech, talking about Mobileye. I mean, can you share with us the journey you're on and some of the things you shared in your keynote?
Sure. So first, I think it's very much linked to this shift that we're seeing right now and why the industry and the OEMs are taking this direction of bringing higher levels of autonomy into the market. I think the interesting part here was how we're taking different components that were used to be separated and segregated into the whole centralization approach, right? There's the whole SDV approach and the whole centralization approach, bringing more components into the same one. Right. So within the keynote, I've scanned through the different technologies that we have, parking, driving, and driving monitoring system capabilities that we're integrating all together into a same system. And basically it means that we're trying to balance in between three different pillars within the OEM's challenge. One is to bring a very high performance of the function itself. Two is to bring it in a very fast time to market. And three, for it to be very cost effective and efficient. And this is how I address, the key pillars that Mobileye delivers in this market into an actual product. Maybe additional fact here is when the industry is looking at those technologies, they're focusing like 5 to 10 years ago, they were looking at, is it possible to deliver those technologies? Right now, they're looking at how you can do it at scale. Yeah. And this is what I've addressed in our.
And you mentioned earlier that you historically had been more of as a tier 2 supplier, providing a component into another subsystem, but more and more you're emerging as pretty much a tier 1 supplier, providing a more complete subsystem, or in fact, multiple subsystems. Is that a good way to think about your evolution?
Correct. An interesting point here is just that we've gained a lot through our developments around level 2 plus, level 3, and level 4, which helped us in creating this kind of a holistic, full turnkey solution around driving. So basically, if OEMs looked at us as a key technology partner for one of their components, they're now looking at us as a holistic supplier for their advanced solutions.
You mentioned L2 plus L3. I think that's probably the biggest journey, the biggest hurdle that the industry is looking at. As the industry is looking to get to that higher level of autonomy, and perhaps you want to start by explaining for our listeners what those levels mean.
100%.
So what do you see as the biggest technical challenges to achieving those higher levels?
So first, you pointed out a very good point, right? Let's start by explaining what does it mean, level 2 plus and level 3. So level 2 plus and level 3, the main differentiation is basically who's responsible for driving, right? So in level 2 plus, there's a lot of abbreviations around that. So the driver is always responsible. The drivers always need to be attentive and supervise the system itself, even though if it's hands-free or you can let the system drive, you need to be responsible for it. But level 3 is when the system itself takes over in certain ODDs, operational design domains, that the vehicle needs to operate in. Now, this is a significant leapfrog jump in terms of technology that you need to deliver. First and foremost, you need to have much more sensors, right? Much more compute in order to allow that to happen. And basically what we're trying to change in between level 2 plus and level 3, it's not the driving function, it's the mean time between failure.
Right.
We're calling it in the industry the MTBF.
Sure.
So the mean time between failure needs to be much higher, so it will allow the system to take over for the specific driving task.
Right. I think that's a really interesting way to think about it, because most vehicles today, the majority of vehicles that have lane keeping, and I know I'm not going to name any specific systems, but many of these systems are generally L2 plus, because the expectation is at a relatively short amount of time, within a few seconds, the driver needs to be able to take control if, let's say, the system either doesn't understand what to do or an emergency comes up. With a level 3, I'm assuming that there needs to be now a much more extended period of time that the system needs to be reliably able to handle things.
Correct. So you need to detect for much longer, and also you need to take into consideration what will happen if there is some sort of failure in one of the systems.
Right.
This is the way that we approach the level 3, as most of the industry, is you have a main system, and in addition to that, you have a fail operation system. So it's a very delicate topic, and it's a very safety-oriented discussion, not only the performance itself, safety first always.
Of course, and I think so much excitement is around ADAS and autonomous driving. It's obviously a spectrum, and so much advancements in the past few years. It's been incredible to see how fast the pace of innovation is going. In general, obviously, we're seeing so much AI coming into vehicles, not the least of which, of course, is autonomous. As you're bringing AI into there, understanding that AI systems are fundamentally non-deterministic, and that's their strength, but it also can be a technical challenge. What are the things that you see as opportunity and challenges to bring in AI and making them, as you just said a second ago, safe and secure and reliable in this mission-critical environment?
So I think there's two ways to look at this AI revolution that we're seeing ahead of us. One is conceptual and one is practical. The conceptual part is whether you're taking a single monolithic approach of end-to-end AI. Basically, we're calling it in the industry from pixel to torque, or from pixel to control. When you have one single brain, which is a bit less on the safety-oriented approach, according to how we see it. And the other approach to that would be a compound AI approach, which is how Mobileye is looking at it. And I'll double-click on that in a moment.
Sure.
The other aspect of it is very, very much not non-conceptual, but practical. How do you take huge language models, visual language models, and visual language action components and put them in an online system, which also is supposed to meet both safety criteria and cost criteria of an automotive system.
Right.
So Mobileye's approach to that is using a compound AI approach, which is basically a fusion in between both worlds. We're basically relying on the safety element, on the core long learnings that we've had for the past 25 years with the composable algorithms, which are getting always better and better, introducing more and more components into these systems. And in addition to that, we have a frontier aspect of innovation in end-to-end and large language models and visual language models aspects that currently we're integrating them together, right? So we're in a compound AI approach, we're just merging in between the two and enjoying both worlds.
Should we think about that as you're more fusing the models, or that the models each have a specific function that then they collaborate? What's the best way to think about that?
So we can think about it that the main semantic or human-like driving will be done as tasked by the end-to-end model itself, right? So the more human, natural type of behavior. However, you would still want the guardrails or the boundaries of the system to be maybe a bit more rule-based, because there's always the long-tail problem that you would want to recover from. So basically, this is the approach. We're just mixing in between them.
I think it's very, very clever. So shall I think about that as kind of AI is watching over other AI. It's like there's some deliberate separation so that there's someone kind of looking over your shoulder, or in a manner of speaking.
You can think about it as another envelope, safety envelope on top of your core brain that will help to make sure that what you're doing is the right thing to do, and in a way that you could look back on it and track it back, and not just it's not like an open-ended loop.
That's right. We've done some work with safety certification. A year ago, we announced we'd been ASIL decertified for a safety monitor for one of our products, which a very similar idea was that this safety monitor was able to look over the actions of one of our products before it took an action and say that it is or isn't functionally safe in that situation. So it allows you to not have to, in our case, functionally safety certify the entire product, but you certify the safety monitor. It's a common approach in the industry.
Correct.
Sounds like it's a somewhat similar approach.
Very much. It's very much so that you are homologating the safety-oriented system and not the whole system as is.
So it's well known that Mobileye has one of the largest driving databases in the world. I hope you can tell us a little bit about that. But because you've been in operation for so long, how does that database give you advantages, and what are some of the ways you use that database to help your train and teach your algorithms?
So basically, this is one of the core assets of Mobileye that we're proud of. We've been around for 25 years, as I mentioned, and we have different types of data sets. We have more than 500 petabytes of data that we've aggregated throughout the world. It is combined through computer vision data, driving behavior data, and also RAM, which is the Mobileye Road Experience Management. This is a sparse information data that we're harvesting on a crowdsourced base. And we're utilizing this in 2 to 3 main ways. One, this huge data set is helping us to train our end-to-end networks, our algorithms, and make them better. And we have real-world data and use cases to tackle with using this data set. This is one. Other one is that we have a huge data set to validate what we're developing. This is yet another very powerful tool. Other companies in the industry are working on simulators because they do not have this access to that much of data that we have, as Mobileye has. So, a third point is how do we tackle the long tail problem? Right now, when we're talking about end-to-end models, we're seeing the long tail problem of edge cases. And right now, using this vast amount of data that we have, we can be exposed to many, many different use cases and train our data to extreme scenarios, and we can basically improve our system dramatically.
It's so important to point that out, because I think if you think about, maybe if you, as a driver, if you think about your own experience, if you could imagine sort of mentally recording your driving, like 95% of it's utterly boring.
100%.
Maybe it's 98%. But there's 2% that's totally terrifying or super important or safety critical. And that opportunity gives you the ability to find those 2% times millions of trips.
Exactly.
And accelerate the study of those corner cases.
So right now we've also, this is a great point, because right now, in order to tackle this long tail problem, we've also just recently announced the CEO and the CTO of the company, Professor Amnon Shashua and Professor Shasha Lev-Schwartz, just published a new article about 2 new tools that we have in order to find those exact use cases within this vast amount of data that we have. One tool is Meteor, one additional tool is Generio. These are 2 different tools that we're using to basically using visual language models to extract those unique cases that are reproducible and can really create a significant change in the safety cases of those long tail cases.
That's wonderful. And as ADAS has evolved, one of the things that you're seeing is in certain geographies, certainly in the US and in Europe, with NHTSA standards in the US and the equivalent standard in Europe, you're seeing now certain classes of ADAS features like automatic emergency braking, notably, and some others that are becoming standard in 2027 and beyond, for example. So how are you helping to bring your capability, which of course can be very powerful at the high end, down to wider price points as that's becoming more standardized across the line?
So I think this is a very good point. When we're looking at systems like I've just talked about today, the surround ADAS, is basically the idea is to bring multiple components and bring them into a single compute unit. The surround ADAS that I mentioned a moment ago is based on the IQ6 High. This is the brain of Mobileye. IQ6 High basically allows us to bring different components of driving, parking, visualization, and integrate them. So basically, if you think about it, an OEM would have to spend hundreds of dollars on different segregated compute units that now can be integrated into a single one and deliver much more with much less.
So with integration, the cost can come down. You still have high-end solutions for some of the higher autonomous driving levels, but for lower end cars that just need the basic compliance requirements, you can meet that with different cost solutions.
So we can do that, and we can even upgrade low-trim vehicles to additional higher levels of autonomy with lower costs. So just take as an example, Volkswagen. This is a partner that we've also announced a partnership with a couple of years ago that is taking the surround ADAS into market. It is not well known to be a premium brand, but it's still taking this ADAS Level 2 Plus into a lot of his vehicle brands.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, L2 Plus, as you said, that's sort of below the line where the driver is still responsible. But one of the things that you often see in L2 Plus is lane keeping. It's sometimes adaptive cruise control, depending on the vehicle. And once you've used lane keeping and adaptive cruise control, it really takes the burden out of, let's say, highway driving. And in a traffic jam, for example, in the Bay Area where we live, is tons of traffic jams. And I used to, it's a traffic jam. Well, now, of course, I still have to pay attention, but the drudgery of a traffic jam is almost eliminated because the car does 90% of the work and you're looking for, do I have to take over? It's really very, very pleasant.
I think if you've experienced this function, like going on a highway and you don't need to worry about the driving itself. Obviously, you need to supervise it, right? Sure. But you can relax your body and just ensure that the ride is going smooth, and even potentially also active lane changes, right? That is also something which is very useful, and until you experience that, you don't really understand what it is. But once you experience it, it's a significant change.
Active lane change, and my vehicle has that, and I love that feature. And as a listener who hasn't had that, it might seem gimmicky, but actually it's really not. Because one of the things that's a very frequent source of accidents is lane changes and hitting a car in your blind spot. I know my vehicle, when I do a lane change, when I'm in lane keeping and sort of an autonomous, adaptive cruise control, it will wait until there's a safe spot. In fact, it has a cool animation. It says, I've found a safe spot, I'm going over to there. But it has made sure that there's no vehicle in the blind spot. So it's actually more safe, not less safe, and it's not a gimmick. It's actually a very powerful feature that I love very much.
Think about it that you have additional eyes and additional sensors on top of the two that you have, and it basically helps you to create a 360 degrees environmental model around the vehicle, and helps you basically to be more to have a more pleasant driving, but much more safe.
Yeah, and it's so easy to think, I'm a better driver, but the reality is every time I'm in adaptive cruise control lane keeping, the car is much safer than when I'm driving, and I'm big enough to admit that now, and that's why I use it every chance I get. This has been such an enjoyable conversation. Congratulations on all the incredible success you've had and on your recent keynote here. We wish you the best of success in the future, and thank you for bringing your technology to bear in more and more vehicles all the time.
Thanks for having me, John. Thanks.
If you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe to see more episodes like it, both here at AutoTech and our other shows around the world. We look forward to seeing you in another episode of The Garage very soon.